Welcome to Policy on Demand. I'm Sindhu Blume. A presidential election and a new administration touch every part of the government, with changes, new ideas, and sometimes a pivot in the road ahead. An area where companies are asking questions is sustainability. Joining me to talk about the election's implications on sustainability from our New York studio is JC Lapierre, a leader in PwC's sustainability practice. JC, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Sindhu.
So now that we know the results of the election, what are your initial thoughts on how this could impact sustainability?
There's an awful lot going on in this space, Sindhu, and I'm so happy to be here talking about it with you today. With President Trump winning another term and Republicans gaining control of the House and the Senate, there will certainly be implications for sustainability, particularly when it comes to regulatory policy and the legislative agenda. We know our clients have a lot of questions about the path forward for the Trump administration. And in fact, in our recent Pulse survey, executives ranked U.S. trade, economic policy, and regulatory oversight among their top 3 policy risks under a Trump presidency. What I want to underscore for companies, and what's most important to know, is that regardless of how the Republican platform takes shape, there are powerful incentives for staying the course. And I'm really looking forward to getting into that discussion today.
Before we do that, I want to point out that you were at Climate Week this year. I want to find out if all of the people who you met there, all of your discussions, did the election and the implications of the election on sustainability come up? And what did you hear from companies? What are some of the questions they were asking?
Such a great question. Climate Week, the energy was incredible at Climate Week. And I talked to so many different organizations, different leaders in different roles that have responsibility and some that don't have primary responsibility for sustainability. I have to be honest, the election was not a main part of the conversation. What was, though, is the pressing nature of sustainability on a company's agenda and this relentless focus on it's now time. And when you have the regulatory pressures coming about, fiscal policy is changing and where money is flowing is something that looks very different. And commitments have been made by companies. What people are talking about most is how can we create the most compelling business case and narrative to stay focused and keep moving regardless of what happens.
Okay, and so now we're here post-election. So I want to talk about immediate implications. What are you anticipating for the first 100 days of this new administration?
A second Trump administration will likely look a lot like the first one. So we can use that as a directional guide. We'll see a strong focus on traditional energy sectors, and President Trump has promised to immediately take action to expand U.S. energy production. We should all look for a flurry of action at the department and agency level, particularly at the EPA and others that focus on environmental issues. And since Republicans control the Senate, President Trump will likely have an easier time getting cabinet members and department heads confirmed. The agency mandate will likely be a significant rollback of Biden-era climate policies. During his first term, Trump eliminated more than 100 environmental regulations, and we should anticipate something similar happening. He may also withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Climate Accord and revive an executive order making it harder for employers to offer ESG-focused mutual funds and corporate retirement plans. One of the things that I think will be most interesting to watch is how quickly he moves to enact across-the-board tariffs. We often talk to clients about building sustainable, resilient supply chains. Now it's so important as tariffs may expose companies to such risks, depending on how other countries react to President Trump's moves.
All right, and what about the long term? Do you see a potential for major legislation?
Having control of the House and Senate certainly makes it easier for President Trump to move legislation. I think what remains to be seen is what will become of the Inflation Reduction Act. That's such a significant legislative achievement of the Biden administration and provides hundreds of billions of dollars in tax incentives for initiatives that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Republicans have talked about repealing the law, which could stall capital projects designed to reduce companies' carbon footprints. However, a repeal would require support from Republicans in Congress, many of whom have seen significant benefits of the law in their home states. With that said, there's also room for potential bipartisanship on certain sustainability issues. Both Democrats and Republicans want resilient supply chains, fair trade, US-based manufacturing, and energy independence. And a rare area of agreement between the campaigns is the threat of EV imports from China.
All right. And then what should companies be doing now to prepare for both policy changes in the first 100 days when it comes to legislation and regulations that may be coming later? And who in the C-suite should be monitoring these developments?
For chief sustainability officers, ESG controllers, COOs, anyone who has responsibility for sustainability, we suggest you continue championing projects that are currently underway. Use this time to really focus your efforts, be clear about where you're headed, but also determine the impact on project completion if sustainability tax credits, incentives, or other funding sources are scaled back. Company leaders should also stay in close contact with their public policy teams to stay on top of legislative and regulatory developments.
And I think you've made a really important point about staying the course. And while the focus for now may be on the implications of the U.S. election, could you talk about why companies also need to be focusing on the regulatory environment abroad?
The Trump administration will likely move to stall the enactment of the SEC's climate-related disclosure rules. But here in the U.S., companies still need to comply with California's climate disclosure requirements. And we must be aware that other states may move to enact their own rules too. Additionally, companies can't lose sight of the upcoming deadlines for the European Union's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, or CSRD, as many of us call it. There are significant financial, regulatory, and reputational risks for companies that don't comply. If you sell goods and services in that region, CSRD has to be a priority for your business. And countries like Canada, Mexico, and Australia have also proposed or enacted climate disclosure regulations. That's one of the key reasons why nearly half of the respondents in our Pulse survey said, regardless of the election, they will increase investments, and even in a Trump administration. Regardless of what choices are made, companies still need to address those requirements.
And I want to point out to our viewers, we will have a link to the results of the Pulse survey in the description of this episode. So let's continue on the investment theme. So what would you tell a company that is rethinking its commitment to sustainability?
I cannot say it enough. I recommend stay the course. I know it's tempting to put sustainability on the back burner or to pull back. There's so much on companies' agenda for leaders these days, but there is such a powerful growth opportunity here. And there's also a lot potentially at risk. Putting sustainability at the top of the agenda has so many benefits. It can help reduce energy demand, cut costs, drive operational improvements, deliver capital projects on time, manage your physical risk and resiliency, and spot new ways to increase revenue. Those that forgo this opportunity, we believe, will quickly risk losing ground to their competitors.
The area of climate sustainability, all of it has been a big issue for companies in recent years, more than recent years. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk through this, because I think going forward, it's going to be a key focus as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This episode is part of a series looking at different policy initiatives under the second Trump administration. You can find other episodes in the series on our website and linked in the description of this episode. We appreciate you spending this time with us. Take care.